we hate to have a real high water season during the peak of the hunting season, especially the rut, because what it does, the water gets so deep in those bottoms, you end up getting 4 or 5 feet of water where this animal can move around when it's dry, during normal low water conditions, and it forces them out into the pressure. You follow what I'm saying? So it allows a lot of them to get killed a lot more easily. We rather the water stay lower so they have those areas to retreat to get away from the hunting pressure. Then the water come up. It'll push them out of their core areas they like to be to get away from the pressure, and it's going to push them into more dangerous areas where they're going to potentially get killed.
Now, how deep is too deep for them? I mean, do they just not care if they have to swim, or are they looking for something where maybe it's knee deep to a deer or anything like that?
I've run across them at times to where they actually had to swim, to where his head sticking out of the water was too deep for him to actually walk, and they had to swim. And they're gonna do whatever they feel they need to do to get away from the pressure, whether it's a pack of dogs running them, or somebody that they picked up their scent. You know what I mean? And you picked up their scent right in its core area. They will swim if they have to. They won't swim for real long distances, but I've seen them swim the Whiskey Bay Pilot Channel, which is it's 1,000 foot wide and 100 feet deep. We've encountered bucks swimming that river and does. They'll swim for certain reasons. Pack of coyotes might get on him, and he's tired of running from that pack of coyotes, so he'll hit that river and he'll swim that river.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make one more point about the bedding, because I'm curious to see what Mr. Jody's thoughts is on it.
Yeah.
But I've had people message me or even tell me to my face, because I'll get in the beds at times, and they'll be like, "Man, you totally messing up." And they say that, but at the same time, with the GPS studies, with the MSU and everything, they say the bucks aren't using that specific bed very often, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's if you believe that those bucks aren't using those beds very often, then it shouldn't be me. I shouldn't be messing up the scenario if I get in the bed, right? So what I will do is whenever
that's an interesting perspective.
Right.
I like that.
So what I will do is whenever I find a bed, I will go to it and I will get in it and look at the hair in the bed, right? But from that point, it's you developing the intuition you need.
Oh, yeah.
So now when I'm walking into an area and I'm seeing the sign that I want to see, I can relate that sign to the preferred bedding, because I've seen it. I've gotten in the bed before, right? What I was hunting today was in some, I don't want to say what I was hunting today. But what I was hunting today was when you're on the ground, it's taller than your head. Right. But when you're in the tree, you can see good in it.
Exactly.
So because I get in those beds, now I can relate the sign that I'm seeing to what I believe is the preferred bedding in the area, which I feel has been helping me. That's what led me to being on those bucks today.
What it allows you to do is, when you find that buck's bedding area, it allows you to become tactical, to figure out what is he doing to get to here, where he's coming from. Why is he coming from over there? Then you can kind of start investigating off of where you located that bed. And whether you in a reserve or a public area, wherever the area is you hunting, if you need a GPS that side or whatever, drop a pin, and off of that you figure out. You start figuring out where he's traveling from, where he's coming from, where he's moving to from there and from to there, and it allows you to set up and intercept him going to and from that bed.
Mr. Jody, what about when the water starts coming up? How does it change the bedding? Because we have a lot of fluctuating.
Yeah, I don't think an animal likes to lay up in the water. He's either gonna find him a leaning tree he can climb up on, a hill, When water starts coming up in an area, he's going to maybe relocate. I don't think he's going to relocate a very long distance from where he's hanging around at and where he feels safe, but he's going to find him a spot to where he doesn't have to stay in the water. I've seen him, stand up in the water and stay still for a long time when I encounter him. You know what I mean? But a white-tailed deer is not an animal that just likes to lay down in the water. They like to be dry. They like to buckle up their legs underneath their body to keep their legs doesn't have much, meat on them to keep them warm during cold weather. But they don't like to lay down in the water, but they'll get on that hill, dry off and stay dry on that hill, and they'll stay there all day long. As long as they don't get pressured off that hill, they're going to stay on that hill until they're ready to come off of it.
But now, how does that change? By the way, guys, Jake's back. Appreciate it, Gavin. How does that change if you have any kind of flood stages happening during season? How much are the deer going to shift, and how do you shift with those deer when that water starts coming up?
Most of the guys I know, as well as myself, we hate to have a real high water season during the peak of the hunting season, especially the rut, because what it does, the water gets so deep in those bottoms, you end up getting 4 or 5 feet of water where this animal can move around when it's dry, during normal low water conditions, and it forces them out into the pressure. You follow what I'm saying? So it allows a lot of them to get killed a lot more easily. We rather the water stay lower so they have those areas to retreat to get away from the hunting pressure. Then the water come up. It'll push them out of their core areas they like to be to get away from the pressure, and it's going to push them into more dangerous areas where they're going to potentially get killed.
Now, how do you handle that situation in the past if you've ever had those kind of seasons? Do you change your perspective completely when that happens? How do you handle that?
No, it's just you try to be a heck of a lot more top secret getting in the area that you're hunting, because it's a lot easier for someone who is not as good of a hunter and as good as hunting signs and figuring out what the animal is doing to go into that area and kill that good animal you're trying to kill. So you try to be a lot more quiet, talk to people, let them know what you're doing. If I'm not working during the hunting season, I'm going to hunt during the week, to where on the weekend somebody's not going to pass and see my boat, or they're not going to see where I'm traveling to or traveling from. You know what I mean? I try to avoid the areas where potentially there's going to be more pressure that they're going to stumble on what I'm on. You know what I mean? But when the water's low, it's a lot harder to get to those areas. So you don't have as much pressure that or competition you have to deal with. You know what I mean? But as that water comes up, it's just so few areas that animal has refuge on. You know what I mean? And it's a lot easier for the other hunters to be able to get to them.
Now, this is something I've heard from other guys, specifically in Alabama, that hunt some river bottom public land, is dealing with duck hunting pressure. And I've heard this in other areas. What's your thought on duck hunters and duck hunting pressure for you when it comes to deer hunting?
We've had so many different times, myself and like my brother and a buddy of his were in the duck blind. They had built them a duck blind in one of these bottoms that I hunt, okay? And they were hunting ducks, and they could hear that walking in the water. The water was on the ridge, you know what I'm saying? And they'd bring the rifle, because they knew that potentially they could shoot a deer. Bill, he was my brother's son-in-law. He and my niece split up. But anyway, he said, "You hear that deer?" He said, "Yeah." That's what he grabbed the rifle. You know what I mean? And Steven has the rifle, my brother, and he's real short. He's not much taller than 5 foot, probably 5'2", 5'4", I don't know. He's pretty short. And Bill's pretty tall. Bill's probably 6'1", 6'2". And Steven said, he said, I can't get a shot on him. You know what I mean? He couldn't see out of the blind good enough. This animal was walking on the ridge in the shallow water, and he got horns. Bill said, "Give me the rifle." He said, "I can see him good right here." So they're in the blind playing musical guns. You know what I'm saying? I can't shoot him. You shoot him. They're hunting ducks, calling with the calls, with the duck calls, quacking at ducks. You know what I'm saying? Feed calling ducks, shooting ducks. Then here comes this buck on the ridge. He's going to try to get away from the pressure. You know what I'm saying? And Bill takes the rifle, and he shoots him in the neck, and they kill him. They got their limited ducks and a nice 8-point buck. I hunted with my boy one time, and we were hunting ducks. And could hear that deer coming in the water. And he couldn't shoot it, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, I needed some deer meat, and it was either sex, and it was a doe. And we were shooting mallards, almost like a little ponded area on this ridge, and it's kind of dry, 6-8 inches of water, and I hear this deer coming in the water. And we had just shot ducks not that long ago, and I'm calling and I'm quanking and stuff, and I hear that coming. I put some buckshot. I mean, deer passed 20, 30 yards from her. I shot her in the neck, and I killed her. We kill our limited ducks, and we kill a doe, So at times, yeah, it'll scare animals, but I think they hear duck hunters hunting so much, and they're in that stationary area, and they hear the calling, they hear the shooting, they know it's something that it's not a threat to them, so they don't mind going into that area, So we've killed deer and bucks actually on duck hunts, because I hunt ducks all the time, So yeah, that's a myth. You know what I mean? But it's a myth, yet get in that animal's core area and try to kill him. You know what I mean? You'd never think he would be stupid enough to come where you calling ducks and shooting ducks. You know what I mean? But they prove you wrong. So I don't know. Sometimes they're so intelligent, and you feel like, man, there's no way I can get that deer. And sometimes they screw up, and they're so stupid. It's like, golly, you couldn't have been more stupid than what you did right there, boy. You know what I mean? You disappointed me.
That's the kind of deer I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, yeah. The stupid ones are the better ones.
I need the stupid ones, especially if I was going to come hunt down here.
So one thing you just mentioned, and I want to make sure I heard this correct and the listeners heard this correct. You were talking about that duck hunt, that ridge when you shot the doe. The ridge was kind of dry, had 6 to 8 inches of water.
Yeah,
that's kind of dry.
That's dry for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I just want to clarify.
The bottom had 3-4 feet of water in it. You know what I mean?
And the ridge had 6 to 8 inches, but
Yeah.
the deer still running it.
Oh yeah, that's prime. That's prime hunting territory. The type of areas I hunt, 6-8 inches of water on the ridge. That's just right.
So that makes me want to ask you then, how does that affect you reading sign on those ridges when there's a little bit of water on them?
The water gets muddied when the animals are passing. When you're traveling it readily, you're gonna find that you're gonna find that discolored clear water. You know what I mean? And you're gonna start spotting those tracks. You're gonna spot those tracks in that. There's still like some muddiness in the tracks. You know what I mean? When they're walking through the water, they leave bubbles a lot of time. Like let's say you shoot that animal and you don't kill him, you don't drop him in his tracks. A lot of times you're not gonna find blood because he's in the water. So you track him, you see the splashing on the cypress knees, and they leave bubbles. It's like right there, it's just a slick of clear water, and right there you see like a trail of bubbles. That animal passed right there. You follow him on his bubbles. You know what I mean? A lot of times I'm walking like that, and I'll spot those bubbles, and then when I get there, you can still see the faded, muddy tracks of the deer that had passed right there. So you learn to find the signs that they leave behind. Yeah.
Do you find them making rubs in that water?
Oh yeah, you find the rubs too. I found a lot of little cypress trees to where they're like that golden orange yellow. You know what I mean? You be walking, taking your time, walking quiet in that water because you don't just come crashing through the water. That animal's on a hill 100 yards away from you. He's gonna hear you. What the hell is that? A buffalo? You know what I'm saying? What's coming at me? You know what I mean? So you're taking your time, and all of a sudden you're gonna look over there and you're gonna see a cypress about 2-3 inches, 3-4 inches in diameter, and that sucker's skin up. You know what I mean? It's bright orange yellow. You find those rubs in the water a lot. Yeah. Sometimes these animals, they stay in the water. They don't come out of the water.
That's what I was going to say. If you look back at a lot of the deer you've killed the last, say, 10, 15, 20 years, bucks specifically, were pretty much the commonality with all of them, were most of them wet or had like the underside wet or something like that, where you could tell they'd been in that water?
A lot of them, they stay in the water so much, their hooves are like deteriorated away, and they're cracked up. You know what I'm saying? Like they're discolored, they're more white on the tips, and like you feel sorry for that poor animal because he's in the water so much to where his hooves can't stay dry enough to where they're in good healthy condition. You know what I mean? But that's how much they'll stay in the water. One time, my buddy, I'll tell you another little story. I don't know how, and it wasn't a respectable 8-point, but this was on the island across the river from where our camp was, and he and it's another his cousin. He really good hunter. He hunts lock-ons high up in the tree. He likes to smoke, but he gets so high up, the animals don't smell his smoke. And he said, I like to just sit up there and watch them animals. When he sees one he wants to shoot, he'll shoot it. But anyway, he's a good hunter. And his dad had some oil wells on that island that they would gauge and they would check. And when they would ride around checking these wells, they started noticing the track of a deer. And it looked like a buck track. A buck's going to sink pretty good, and he makes those... what are they called?
Claws.
Yeah, the dew claws, Well, one of those buck tracks they were seeing had a crooked like toe. You know what I mean? And he and Brian were talking about that crooked toe. This is that son of a gun's always in the road. Always, like it would rain, they would see that crooked toed buck track. So it's the same place where I killed that big 8 and then that big 7. That one was about 240 pounds. That big 7 that I have at our camp was about 232 pounds. It was the same area. So I went into that area and I hunted, and I set me up 3 mock scrapes. I put one over here, I put one over here, and I put one over here, and I put like a tarsal gland in one and like just a scent dripper, in the other 2, and I put some strong dominant buck urine. I used to use the Tinks I watched Ben Lee a lot. I like Ben Lee. But anyway, I had set up some tanks and I climbed. And I bleeded and I grunted a little bit. And apparently that deer was downwind of those mock scrapes that I made. And man, here he comes. So boy, he was going from one mock scrape to the other, and I shot him and I killed him. I walked over there and I looked at his foot. I noted his foot right away. He had that crooked hoof. You know what I mean? So I got back to the camp. My buddy was at the camp. I said, "Look, you crooked hoof deer you've been looking at." He said, "You son of a gun." He said, "It's like they were intrigued, but they wanted to kill that deer." Well, I killed him for him. So yeah, I put the 3 mock scrape on him. He couldn't take it. I got him.